Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, fueling philanthropic programs and dedicated to creating educational and professional opportunities for Alaska Native people.
Sometimes the best way to find a living is to stay right where you are and study with UAS online. Career-specific distance programs from the University of Alaska Southeast are the fastest way to increase your earning power.
We connect all over the world.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting this evening's broadcast. On yesterday's satellite imagery, just a few clouds here, not many, across the southeast coast, but more moisture is streaming northward late in the day here, coming up from the south. Pretty good conditions in over much interior Alaska, and some cloudiness over Prince William Sound and south central Alaska, which extended over the southwest interior and back down toward Kodiak Island. Then a break there over northern Bristol Bay, looks like from about Togiak over to maybe King Salmon. And up to the north, some variable clouds, but nothing really significant going on up there along the Arctic coast. A lot of clouds out in the Bering Sea with this system right through here. Actually, today that system sliding northwestward, and that's keeping the rain and gusty winds in over the Alaska Peninsula. And a lot of clouds here over the southeast Bering Sea, but a lot of sunshine over the interior today. Some clouds there from about Tanana northwestward across the Noatak Valley, and a little bit of clouds here over the western North Slope back up across the Arctic coast there, but pretty good conditions off to the east. Just some patchy haze and fog, with basically clear skies along the Arctic coast and fair conditions right down to the Copper River Basin, and showers out here over the Aleutians, but winds were quite light. And then rolling this again, had this area of moisture, really just clouds today, not really any type of precipitation producing stuff there. Otherwise, down here to the south, there were some showers rolling up to the northwest there with that next batch of clouds centered down over the Queen Charlotte Islands. And on the chart today, there are those showers there scattered along the southeast coast, and then the cloudiness here along the North Gulf Coast, up across the southeast Copper River Basin. Some high stuff coming into the Cook Inlet area this afternoon, but nothing very significant at all. And then the cloudiness up here, Koyukuk Valley, again back out into the southeastern Chukchi Sea. There were a few flurries and patchy fog areas here from the western North Slope on up across Wainwright in those areas, but pretty good off to the east there. And light winds over the interior, but up over the north central and northeast interior south of the Brooks Range. There were some east to northeast winds, 10 to 20 miles per hour, but a lot less here over the southern areas. And that trough in the Gulf of Alaska, again, really not producing too much, but the front down here, southeast winds 10 to 20, some gusts 30 to as high as 35 miles per hour occurring. For example, at Cold Bay, they had a gust of 35 earlier today. A few isolated showers here over the southwest coast, and that rain west and or east and southeast of the Pribilofs now probably be sliding in there, back in there this evening. Otherwise, the main low center here keeping it cloudy, but mostly dry there over the eastern Aleutians. Light winds, scattered showers extending across the extreme southern Bering Sea on out to the Komodorskis. And for tonight, that front really doesn't move much except this portion here the counterclockwise flow around the low center. So easterly flow across the Bering Sea here is going to push that frontal boundary back to the west. And again, that's why the rain will be coming back into the Pribilofs tonight, but nothing too significant wind-wise. No change for the Aleutians, partly to mostly cloudy with some scattered showers. Chance of rain for Dutch Harbor and Alaska. Periods of rain continue. Periods of light rain continue for the Alaska Peninsula with diminishing winds here as a gradient slackens off. And then we've got that weak trough up along the North Gulf Coast for a chance of scattered showers here, Prince William Sound over to Yakutat. And also as that lifts northward across the northern panhandle, but drying out down over the southern areas with some partial clearing. Up in the interior, variably cloudy, still a little breezy up here in the northeast. Risk of some light rain or snow showers there for the upper Yukon Valley over into the Koyukuk. Otherwise, pretty nice conditions up along the Arctic coast. Really no change at all with east to northeast winds 15 to possibly as high as 25 miles per hour out over the Bering Sea. And looking ahead to tomorrow, that front really stalled out here right across the Alaska Peninsula, but the moisture edging its way northward, so a chance of rain, especially in the afternoon and toward evening there for southwestern Kodiak Island. Otherwise, up to the north, not too bad at all. Kodiak Fognak Island, and leftover moisture here can mean a chance of showers throughout the day tomorrow for mostly Prince William Sound and the eastern Kenai Peninsula area there, and especially western Prince William Sound. And then also some of that moisture upslope conditions on the eastern or along the east side of the western Alaska range. Probably kick off some showers there as well. Mostly cloudy, scattered showers over the southeast interior. Otherwise, partly to mostly sunny or cloudy there for the entire western part of the state. Even the north slope and the Arctic coast looking pretty good, continuing with those easterly winds. And for the southeast coast here, weak trough right through here, keeping a chance of showers and partly to mostly cloudy skies in the forecast for that area through tomorrow. And then for Saturday, a system tomorrow night rolls up to the north, and a weakening front brings another chance of rain. Probably rain likely there for Kodiak Island and right along the North Gulf Coast up into Yakutat. This thing mostly pushes through the southeast coast tomorrow night and on early on Saturday, so look for rain changing to showers and tapering off in the afternoon here, kind of lingering. The rain showers might not set up, or the rain probably won't change the showers here over the northern areas till late in the afternoon or Saturday evening, but really not too bad here in the afternoon across much of the southeast coast. The interior, light winds, variable clouds, a lot of areas picking up some sunshine, and then look for an increase in the winds here along the eastern Arctic coastal areas with small craft divisors at the central coast, minimum gales out for the eastern Arctic coast there for those easterly winds. Fair conditions across the Seward Peninsula, sunshine up over the Noatak Valley areas, as well as the Yukon Kuskokwim River Delta zones. Dry, partly to mostly cloudy, light winds there for Bristol Bay down across the Alaska Peninsula. And this next system pulling up to the central Aleutians brings gusty winds and periods of rain into the Fox Islands. The Pribilofs kind of in a break, scattered showers, lighter winds, northerlies maybe up to 25 knots over the western Aleutians. And temperatures this afternoon, mostly in the 50s here across the Panhandle with 53 at Klawock, 51 over at Sitka, Juneau 55 degrees, up to 64 at Skagway with Yakutat hitting 61. Mid to upper 50s here for Prince William Sound, and mid 50s for the most part over south central Alaska, although Homer did reach 50 degrees. Mid 40s there, Kodiak Island, and 50s in the Copper River Basin. Northway had 56, 55 at Delta. Fairbanks up to 60 this afternoon. Notably cooler off to the west with Tanana at 45, 43 at Bettles. Just 39 there at Fort Yukon, and in the lower 30s for the Brooks Range. Umiat Airfield, 20 degrees this afternoon with teens here, central western Arctic coast, 20s to the east side. Kotzebue saw 40 this afternoon, Point Hope at 30, 28 at Wales with 46 degree reading in Nome. McGrath, 51 degrees, and Bethel had 53 with Mountain Village at 49. St. Michael had 46 and a 34 out there on St. Lawrence Island at Savunga, and off to the Bering Sea, lower 40s for both St. Paul and St. George. Upper 30s, Adak out to Shimya, and then lower 40s from Atka right up the Alaska Peninsula there to a 57-degree reading at King Salmon. Lows for tonight, excuse me, in the mid to upper 30s here over the southwest interior in Bristol Bay, the peninsula, and even the Aleutians and Bering Sea. 40s, lower to mid there for the southeast coast, and lower 30s right up to the southern Seward Peninsula areas. Chilliest up here over the northeast, Arctic Village into the eastern North Slope with single numbers and teens in those areas, as well as the Arctic coast. And for the highs tomorrow, teens and 20s here for the areas north of the Brooks Range. Otherwise, mid-30s to lower 40s over the northwest interior, and a lot of 50s to near 60s showing up again over the Tanana Valley down into the Kuskokwim, south central Alaska. 50s, the Sitna Valley pushing 60 again, as well as the southern southeast coast, some areas rising into the 60s, lower 60s. Otherwise, mid to upper 50s, 40s out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Flying weather for tomorrow, VFR here, especially for tomorrow afternoon, or actually, this area lifting northward. So tomorrow morning, look for some IFR, possibly over the northern southeast coast, but that'll be improving to VFR in toward the afternoon. Areas IFR from the North Gulf Coast to the Kenai Peninsula, with that moisture, leftover moisture, lifting northward into that area. Arctic coast, possible IFR anywhere from Point Lay all the way eastward. IFR here, southwest Kodiak Island to the Alaska Peninsula, and well out into the Bering Sea, including the Pribilof, some of that angling back up towards St. Lawrence Island. Taking a look at the passes, Anatuvik, good VFR on either approach tomorrow. Same forecast for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. Possible marginal conditions on both eastern entrances. And for Rainy, VFR. With windy, same forecast. Isabel looking good. Mentasta as well. Tanita, VFR. And for Portage, starting out with IFR, gradually becoming marginal, probably from noon time on. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR to start with becomes VFR. Freezing levels, 8,000 feet here over the southern southeast coast. The ridge pushing 6,000 feet up to Yakutat, 4,000 feet over the southeast quarter of the state, and 2,000 feet right up across the northern Bering Sea and the Chukchi there to roughly about Point Lay, coming back down to around Cold Bay. And icing threats tomorrow with the showers here, maybe between 4,000 to 10,000 feet from the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and again the northern southeast coast, especially early in the day, but just a chance. And then with the front out here, could see some icing for the Alaska Peninsula over to the Pribilofs and then sliding back down across the eastern Aleutians, but really nothing all that significant. Winds aloft, 33,000 feet here, shows a trough off the west coast of North America, and a low center well to the south of Kodiak Island. Got the main jet sailing along like this, splits right in this area with one branch coming back to the northwest at about 50 knots, and that continues that easterly track right across the Bering Sea there. And looking at 9,000 feet, we've got east to northeast winds on the light side, 5 to 15 knots over much of the interior. Just off the Arctic coast, winds significantly stronger there at this elevation, up to 45 knots. Otherwise, the northern Bering Sea looking about 25 knots there. Excuse me. Also on the north side of that low center, here south of the Pribilofs, 25 knots. Otherwise, 10 to 15 knots for the Aleutians, so staying light there with the stronger winds back off to the northwest. And at 3,000 feet, mostly easterly flow here through the interior, 5 to 15 knots, and that's about it, with the stronger winds eastern Arctic coast to the north, maybe up to 35 knots. Light winds here for the Panhandle as well as the Alaska Peninsula. And then this easterly flow, 15 to 30 knots there from the southwest coast out towards St. Matthew Island. Easterlies 25 knots, that's mostly south of Kodiak Island. 20 knots out of the east there from the North Gulf Coast. Again, pretty light winds out here over all of the Aleutians and the southern Bering Sea. So turbulence-wise, look for some areas of light to very isolated moderate chop there for the eastern Arctic coast, and then from the northwest coast here through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, just grazing the Yukon Delta, Nunivak Island area, on down to the Pribilos, 4,000 to 6,000 feet, again, quite light. And after the break of Hangar Flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Low-lying Orion and the high-flying lion.
Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dean Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory. We're here to help you find your way around the sky.
It's that time of year again when the skies almost yell out, spring is here.
That's because when Orion is low-lying and the lion is high-flying, winter is on its way out. Let's show you. Now, most of you know that the star pattern Orion the Hunter is about the surest sign that winter is here. In fact, if you go outside in early evening during December, Orion will be climbing up the southeastern sky as a celestial announcement of the imminent arrival of winter.
And in January and February, when winter is at its coldest, Orion reaches his highest point in the heavens, due south in early evening, almost bragging to the world that he is the master of the season. But then Orion slowly leaves center stage in early evening, and by the beginning of April is tipped over on his side in the southwest, almost hanging on to the sky for dear life. And it's this placement of Orion in the southwestern sky in early evening that always tells us winter is soon coming to an end.
Yes, and although we're always sad to see Orion's bright stars go, nevertheless, a less bright but much bigger constellation takes its place almost overhead in early evening, announcing that spring is here, the constellation Leo the Lion. If you go out any April night in early evening, you'll see Orion slowly sinking in the southwest, while Leo is crouched at the very roof of heaven, roaring that his season, spring, is here.
Leo's easy to find. His head and forequarters are marked by a backward question mark, or sickle, with the bright star Regulus marking his heart. The triangle of stars to the east marks his rear.
In ancient times, lions were often associated with royalty, and Leo's brightest star, Regulus, means the little king. Regulus is only about half a degree away from the ecliptic, so you'll often see the moon pass quite close to it. And occasionally, the moon will briefly occult it, hiding it from view.
And the planets occasionally move very close to Regulus. In fact, on July 7th, 1959, an extremely rare event occurred when Regulus was actually occulted by Venus as Venus passed in front of it, an event which won't happen again for several centuries.
Regulus is about 85 light years away, which means that we see it not as it looks now, but how it looked 85 years ago. So if you're 85 years old, when you look at Regulus, you actually see the light that left it the year you were born.
And thank heavens that it's that far away, because it's 5 times the diameter of our sun and 160 times brighter. This means that if Regulus were as close to us as our sun, we'd all be crispy critters.
Toasty. And this year we have an extra visitor to the constellation Leo. Do you see that bright star under his body?
How can you miss it? It's super bright.
That is the giant planet Jupiter, and he'll be hanging out with Leo all spring, so be sure to check him out. Okay, we have our skies set up for 10 p.m. any night this week. If you look to the west, you'll just barely see Orion's belt above the treetops and fading into the sunset.
If you have trouble seeing all of Orion, you might have better luck finding his dog. That really bright star to Orion's left is called Sirius, aka the dog star. Sirius is seriously bright and should twinkle all sorts of colors when low in the sky.
Sirius marks the nose of the constellation Canis Major, the big dog. Canis Major, like Orion, is a winter constellation. That means he's heading out for the season too, so don't delay. Look for Sirius this week before it's too late. So get outside just after sunset to see low-lying Orion and the high-flying lion.
2 sure signs that winter's going and spring is here.
Keep looking up.
Welcome back. We're looking at the sea ice analysis for today. Pretty thin or thinning out here from about Nunivak Island on up into the northern Bering there, southwest of St. Lawrence Island, as well as eastern Norton Sound, and right off the coast of the Seward Peninsula. There was some heavier ice in and around St. Matthew Island on up from the north side of St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait. And for marine forecasts here for the southeast coast, south on the south coast, southeast on the north side, all at about 15 knots tomorrow at 6 to 8 foot seas. Look for southeasterlies at 15 for Clarence Strait, while Stevens Passage, you've got 15 knots out of the north in the forecast. Lynn Canal northerlies at 20 knots with 4 foot seas. And then for Saturday, those winds up that way swing around to the south in the afternoon with lower pressure now in over the eastern interior of Alaska into the Yukon. So south 20 knots and central and southern inside waters south to or southeast 15 to 20 knots with 3 to 4 foot seas. And picking these winds up to 20 knots here for the entire coastline, southeast on the north coast, southwest down south with seas running 8 to 12 feet. And for Prince William Sound, easterly winds tomorrow at about 20 knots with 3 foot seas, northeast for Northern Cook Inlet at 15, and south of the Forelands, those pick up to 20 knots. And for both the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay, easterlies at 25 with 6 to 8 foot seas. And then small craft advisories here for the North Gulf Coast as well, 7 to 8 foot seas. Shelikof Strait, northeast at 20, seas 5 feet. And for Saturday, light northeasterlies there for Prince William Sound with slight seas. Small craft advisories here for the North Gulf Coast for those easterlies at 25. Same thing for the Barren Islands. Northeast winds there along the east side of Kodiak Island at 25 knots, 8 foot seas. A little lighter there for Shelikof Strait, northeast at 20. And here from Southern Cook Inlet all the way up to the north, we've got northeasterlies at 15 with 3 to 4 foot seas. And out to the west there for Bristol Bay, easterlies at 20 knots there. And then here on the south side of the peninsula, winds out of the southwest at 20. Otherwise here on the north side, Bering Sea side of the peninsula there, easterlies at 25 knots, good for some small craft advisories with seas at about 6 feet. And from Sitkinak down to say roughly around Chignik there through this area, east winds at 25 with 10 foot seas. And then going to the first day of the weekend here, we'll see swinging around to the northwest at 25 knots, small craft advisories there, much lighter up in Bristol Bay. There on the eastern side of a weak ridge of high pressure, northwest at 10 with slight seas, southwest 15 here for the north side of the peninsula, and for the marine area south of there, westerlies at 20 knots with seas running at about 7 feet. Heading out west of the Aleutians, out over the western areas, light northerlies at 15 with 6 foot seas. For the central Aleutians, Adak and Atka, westerlies 15 to 20 knots, seas 4 to 8 feet, and same pattern here for the eastern Aleutians as well. Westerly winds at 15 to 20 knots with 6 to 10 foot seas. For Saturday, a little stronger south to southeasterlies. Small craft advisories now for the Fox Islands, 25 to 30 knots, seas building 10 to 12 feet. Easterlies, small craft advisory easterlies here for the central Aleutians at 25 with seas up to 11 feet on the south side. And northerlies at 25 knots there for the western Aleutians with 7 to 8 foot seas. And for the southwest coast, for tomorrow, north of Nunivak Island, winds predominantly northeast at 20, south easterly at 20 there. For the Pribilofs, northeast at 20, small craft advisories from the northern Bering Sea, and also easterly winds at 25 knots there for St. Lawrence Island with seas running 2 to 3 feet up in those areas in the ice-free waters. And for St. Lawrence Island on Saturday, east 25 knots, 2 foot seas. Hold on to those 30 knot winds there for the northern Bering Sea and St. Lawrence Island, or no, St. Matthew Island. And again, northeast 15 here, north of Nunivak Island, lighter, more northwesterly breezes south of the island. And for the Pribilofs, southeast at about 20 knots with 5 foot seas. Up along the Arctic coast, brisk wind advisories here for the central coast, up to minimum gales on the eastern Arctic coast for those 35-knot winds. Much lighter here on the west side, just 15 knots, and northeast 15 out to the west. And then for Saturday, northerlies at about 15 knots from Wales up to Cape Thompson, and for the western Arctic coast, northeast of 15, coming down to 20 knots for the central coast, but brisk wind advisories continue for the eastern coastline. And for tonight, could see a few flurries and patchy areas of fog. Nothing really significant up along the eastern coastal areas. Otherwise, partly to mostly cloudy. Probably mostly cloudy here from the Koyukuk into the upper Yukon Valley areas. And this week trough, chance of showers over the northern Panhandle, back across Yakutat to Cordova and in toward Whittier and those areas, but pretty light at that. Otherwise basically dry for the remainder of the southeast coast. Rain continues but tends to diminish, as well as the winds there for the Alaska Peninsula. Chance of showers for Unalaska. Rain comes into the Pribilofs this evening, continues throughout the night with just some scattered showers over the Aleutians. And for tomorrow, mostly cloudy, scattered showers North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. Some of that up into the southeast interior, partly to mostly with a chance of kind of day for the Panhandle tomorrow, and variable clouds over the interior. And weakening front keeps it damp over the Pribilofs. And for Saturday, a stronger system comes up to the central Aleutians, gusty winds and rain in over that area. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.